Last week's episode seems to have hit a bit of a nerve, and I had a lot of riders reach out to me with questions and also with what I would say is pushback with regards to actually implementing what I spoke about last week, which was the intentionally going slowly so that you and your horse can move faster later down the road, okay? So today I thought it would be fun to actually answer some of the questions and the feedback that I got in from riders regarding this, because I always think that if one rider has the question or the issue, there's a whole load more of riders out there with the same thing. So let's dive into this concept of going slowly, going back to basics with your horse, laying that strong foundation in order to actually move on and to do more of the developing and the training and just the fun stuff that you want to do later. Okay, let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Daily Strides podcast for equestrians. My name is Lorna Leeson. I'm an equestrian trainer and coach, and I work with riders from all over the world, helping them to go from feeling stuck in a rut and maybe a bit bored with their horse or just a bit overwhelmed about it all to actually have a plan, putting it into action and making progress, especially if they don't have a regular coach or trainer. And this episode is going to be a little different than usual, because in this episode I am going to answer the questions and I'm going to respond to some of the feedback that I received from riders with regards to last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, make sure you go back and listen to it. But let's dive in to this week's episode. So the very first question that I got in, and I actually got a couple of iterations of this from different riders, was where do I begin? Okay, now some riders said, I don't know where to start. You're saying on the ground, but I don't know what to do there. And it kind of came in a couple of different formations of that. But yes, I did mention in the previous episode to begin on the ground with groundwork, actually leading your horse. And I also said to use your voice. And I know there were a couple of riders saying, but my horse doesn't understand that. Okay, so I wanted to go a little bit more into detail about how I would actually implement this if I were you in your training. So if your horse does not understand an aid, okay, and so many horses, for so many reasons, they don't understand specific aids, or they have a different understanding of specific aids, you need to first of all reach your horse where your horse is right now. You have to work with the horse that you've got today in front of you. So if your horse does not understand the voice aids, you need to work with the aids that your horse does understand, but you're doing it in a way that it's almost like dual controls. So you're building in the other aid, the aid that your horse does not understand, so as your horse can begin to make an association between the aids. And eventually that association will actually turn into you beginning to use the original aid, the one your horse understands now, less and less and less, as the other aid, the one that you prefer your horse to work on, okay, or to work off of or to respond to, as that begins to become more influential in your communication with your horse. So let's take it to the voice. If your horse doesn't understand your voice, first of all, you need to get really clear on your voice, okay? Like, what are you going to do? I always suggest like high pitch for like rewarding, low pitch for steady slowing down, and a quick, sharp voice to make the horse go forward, okay? I just feel that that's really simple. So it'd be like, good boy, good girl, whoa, steady, and trot on, trot on. Okay, so there we go. That's what I would suggest in that situation. And what I would do is then, as I said, use what your horse understands. Now, I'm going to assume that in this situation, the horse understands the rein aids, okay, or understands you using pressure with regards to whatever you're doing with the horse on the ground, using the head collar and lead rope or the bridle or whatever it is you're using, okay? So use that for now. Use what your horse already understands or how you've always done things with your horse, but now you're going to begin to include the voice there. And you have to be consistent. This is like the big thing. If you're not consistent, there's no good doing this for 5 minutes and being like, this doesn't work. Like, peg it away, okay, throw it out. No, you have to be consistent, and not just consistent in the arena. This has to happen everywhere. Like when you go out to fetch your horse from the field, you're now thinking about your voice aids and you're thinking about how can I do what I'm already doing, use what I'm already using. And now we are going to overlay it with my voice so that later my voice becomes the thing that is actually the most powerful aid in the whole situation. Now, and I'm saying your voice, the reason I'm saying your voice is because with your voice then, and I know this goes a little bit off topic, but long term, if you begin using the voice and then, okay, once your horse understands the voice, so now you've made the bridge across from maybe your rein aids to now your voice, and your horse is like, yeah, understand the voice 110%, I've got that. Brilliant. Because then you can do the exact same thing again using the aid your horse understands, which is now the voice, to bridge it across to your seat or your weight. And I hope you can understand that there's this kind of transition period, okay? You have to move things along the line. That's how you're going to actually make this work with your horse. But yeah, start on the ground, start with the voice, and hopefully you now have a better understanding in how to move that along. Okay, next question I got in is, what is the difference between thinking forwards and rushing? Because I think that my horse is thinking forwards just a bit too much. How will I know? Okay, no, they're not the same thing at all. So thinking forwards, and I would say then working forwards, basically looks like your horse moving forward with a sense of purpose or an intention, okay? And the intention is not to get from A to B as quickly as possible, okay? The intention is to work with you in a team. So that is kind of where you're going to. But right now, at the beginning, I would say that thinking forward simply means having a sense of purpose, okay? That is where you want to really and truly move with your horse. You and your horse are like working together, thinking together, okay? But right now, where you are right now, I would say that thinking forward simply means working with a sense of purpose. And this looks so much different than a horse who is distracted and frustrated and annoyed. You don't have relaxation in those kind of ways. So when your horse is rushing and racing, there's no relaxation there, okay? But when your horse is working forward, the tension level is correct for the work that your horse is doing at that moment. And that's relaxation. That's what relaxation is. Relaxation is not lying horizontal with a beverage in hand, okay? When it comes to horse riding, relaxation simply means that the amount of tension that's present within the horse and the rider as they work together is correct for the thing that they're doing at that moment. So there we go. That is the sense of purpose, and that is thinking and working forward. That's what you need to look for. Now remember, if we then build on that, as I said, you bridge that across to you and your horse working together, okay? So there's this teamwork element. That is how you would then begin to kind of work on from there, transition on from that to where you want to go, but get the sense of purpose working for you first. Okay, next question I got in is, I tried this today. The halt, walk, halt was terrible. How long before I get to trot? Okay, first of all, whoa, Tonto, hey, you tried it today. We need to get out of this whole thing about instant gratification when it comes to horses. You tried it today and it didn't pan out as well as you thought. There's no quick fix when it comes to horses. You want to do, there's a reason I call this the really slow, steady work, okay? The foundational work. It's because that's what it has to be. It has to be consistent. It has to be done over time, and it has to be correct with the basics that you're using so that as you move forward, things are better for you and your horse. So, first of all, if you tried it today and it was terrible, I'm going to hazard a guess that you have not done any work on the ground, first and foremost. And I say that because I'm making an assumption you were in the saddle, because you asked how long before I get to trot. So I'm going to assume you don't enjoy jogging along beside your horse, okay? So you're in the saddle, you've tried it today. Have you actually done the work on the ground? I really think that so many riders, they're not doing enough groundwork. Groundwork is the basics, it's the foundation, has to be there. So that's my first suggestion to you, is to go back to the ground, spend some time there, and then just cool your jets, whoa, Tonto there a little bit. It will take time. And if you've been doing it one way for like years, even months, even weeks, it is going to take time to transition to a different way. So just give it time, but you have to show up consistently. My second thing here would be, I am wondering, and I've actually invited this rider to send me a video because I have replied to everybody individually as well, okay? But I've invited the rider to send a video because what I'm thinking here is that there could be something off with regards to the position and the posture of the rider, so that the rider is actually in alignment to allow this to happen within the horse, okay? It starts with you. You can only control what you can control, which is you. You can't control anything else. How well you control you will then decide how well you can have an influence over the things around you, okay? But you have to control you first. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that could be the issue. So have a look at that. And if you're listening to this today and you're like, yeah, but Lauren, I can't send you a video, that's fine. Get a video of yourself doing it and kind of self-assess, okay? Don't be mean, don't be harsh, just be open to the fact that maybe you could do something differently that would allow a different outcome for you and your horse. Okay, next question I got, and I got a couple of variations of this as well, was my horse is getting bored doing this. What can I do instead? And each time I laughed because I thought, I wonder, is the horse getting bored or is the rider getting bored? But anyway, that's a whole different question, isn't it? Look, I think that if you're getting bored here, it's because you're being boring doing this. This is not boring work, folks. This is good work. This is the work, okay? There are so many different ways that you can add interest and variety into just walking. Like you could add lateral movement, you could add ground pose. There's so many different exercises. There's so many different things that you could say. Today, the focus is going to be on the straightness when riding the bend in my serpentines. Okay. And now you're bringing this work into it. I'm going to add my transitions in every time we cross the center line, and it's going to be marvelous. And then you actually don't need anything else. You don't need poles. You don't need fancy lateral work. Fancy. You don't need anything, okay? You could just do basic serpentines, but now you can shift the focus of it. Today is going to be about how, if I ride my serpentines, how well we can maintain the rhythm between the changes in the bend while I'm riding my serpentines. There we go. It doesn't have to be fancy. There's the same exercise written two different ways. Well, written the same way, but with a focus on two different ways. Anyway, all this to say, if you feel your horse is getting bored, first of all, check yourself at the gate. Is the horse getting bored or am I getting bored? And either way, you need to show up as the trainer in that you create a plan to add variety, to keep things interesting, but also to stay on track, to keep the ball moving down the pitch, to keep things moving forward. Okay, really, really, really important. Okay, another question I got was, I realize I am doing everything for my horse. How do I stop? It all falls apart when I do. That I know. Isn't that really eye-opening? Okay, so years and years ago, LD, and if any of you've been around Strides for Success for a while, you know LD. LD said to me, we were at the riding school. LD was kind of a little person. Well, she wasn't a little person, but she wasn't quite an adult yet. She was at that lovely in-between stage. And she said to me, she said, Lorna, I think the issue is there's loads of helicopter parents. And I was like, what in the name of whatness is a helicopter parent? I don't think I even had kids then. Anyway, so she went on to explain to me what a helicopter parent was. And I'm like, you're exactly right. That's the issue. There we go. You hit the nail on the head. Now, I then began to realize that there are so many helicopter riders. Like, it is the exact same thing. They're just trying to do everything for the horse. They are not willing to allow the horse to make any sort of a mistake or anything that may lead to them not feeling 100% emotionally, mentally, and physically comfortable at any point in the game. And I hate to break it to you, but it is very often through emotional and mental discomfort that we grow. And that's true for children, and that's true for horses. Now, do I suggest you just let it go and you're like, right, so best of luck, off you go, you do you? No, you obviously do this within the realms of what you know is safe and is good, okay? So it's just about moving out of the comfort zone. How do we apply this to your horse? and to the topic we're talking about today. You have to be willing to make mistakes, and you'll make mistakes and your horse will make mistakes. And that's the thing about horse riding. Listen, there's going to be millions upon millions, billions even, of mistakes. Every time you work with your horse in an intentional way, if you're not getting quite a few mistakes, like if they're not lining up and you're like, oh, holy moly, we're doing it again. Oh, there we go, we're doing it again. Oh, look, we're doing it again. Oh, there we are, it's happening again. That's how it is. And the important part here is that your job is to set things up as best you can for your horse to succeed in whatever it is you're asking your horse to do. Set it up the best you can, get out of the way, let the horse do it, and if and when, and it's more of a when than an if, okay, makes a mistake, especially initially, you just go in very gently but timely, you correct it, and then you let the whole thing happen again, okay? I tell you now, it feels like you're just doing it, and if you're a parent, you'll know the situation. It feels like you're just doing it on repeat. You're like going over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But that is what is necessary for your horse to learn. And I would add to this that one of the most important, okay, so what I've just said, set it up the best you can, let the horse do it, let him make the mistake, correct the mistake, and then let it all happen again. And I'm going to add to that, do not hold a grudge. And all I mean by a grudge is that if you're beginning to get frustrated, that's a grudge. Now you're like, why can't you get this? What is wrong with you? Like, I'm setting this up for you. It's like, it's not rocket science, hey? It's like halting. Come on. But you know what? That's not going to win anything. That's going to make your horse feel frustration. And remember, I spoke about that tension levels. That is what leads to excess tension. So you have to cop yourself on. You have to rein yourself in, and you have to be able to say, whoa, hold on there now. This is okay. And if I have to do this 100 times, that's also okay. I am not going to bring any emotions. I'm not going to make this mean anything. I'm going to just be very factual about it. It is what it is. Okay, let's just tone the emotions down. Let's just set it all back up again, and let's just let it play out and see what happens. That is how you train your horse. That's how you train yourself. That's how you train kids as well. Hey, there you go. Now we've turned into a parenting podcast. But there you go. It is really important to be able to do that and to be able to do it without the grudge. And thank you, LD, for pointing that out to me years ago. Okay, so the next question I got in was with regards to going slow. And this rider is worried that they will lose the fitness and the training that they're at right now. And how is that going to help us in the long run? That is a good question. And I would say that, and this may not be a very popular opinion, and it may not feel like a nice opinion, but this is my opinion. I would say that wherever you are right now is not actually the correct place and the best place that you could be, because it's not built on the correct and solid foundation. And I would say that going back to the basics and then working from there is actually going to serve you and your horse so much better in the long run. Now, with regards to actual fitness, look, you don't have to stay and walk forever. That's not what I'm asking you to do at all. I would say like a good few solid sessions in walk, and then kind of tune-ins every time before you ride and after you ride. So when you're warming up, when you're cooling down. And remember, you can warm up on the ground. You don't have to be in the saddle to warm up. You can warm up on the ground and then mount up, okay? But having those tune-ups then come in, that is going to move you forward. But I tell you now, doing this work initially is going to only help and have this positive ripple effect all through the training. So I think it's well worth doing. And if your horse is quite fit at the moment, your horse won't lose that level of fitness. And if your horse does lose the level of fitness, you will get back there much more quickly than a horse who's never been that fit, and it's been years since it's been that fit, okay? So just keep that in mind as well. I don't think fitness is like, oh, I missed a day, so there we go, throw in the towel now. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that, okay? So it's important to also keep that. I would say that in this situation with this question, this is very much a rider mindset block, and I would kind of dive deeper into that if I were you, okay? And again, I don't know you, I don't know your situation, but that would just be my thoughts on that. That's kind of what jumped into my head, so I'm going to say it. Okay, next question. How long in each stage before moving on? I suppose this is a bit similar to the last question, isn't it? I think it depends. I always say it depends, but it does depend. It's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on your horse. It's going to depend on how consistent you are and how much you are leaning on how you and your horse know how to do things now. So what I spoke about at the very top, okay, using the aids, using the communication systems that you've got now, how much you're leaning and being dependent on those. It's a bit like having to kind of let go of something so that you can take and grab something else, okay? And so often riders are not willing to let go of the thing. They're like, yeah, but it worked up to now. That's great, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go. You have to be willing sometimes to let go of something. So I would say it does depend, but again, like I said to the previous rider, you don't have to just like cut and dry, like stop everything else. No, you weave it in, you weave. That is so important. And if you want to show up as a trainer for your horse, you're going to have to learn to do that. You're going to have to create and develop suppleness in your approach and in your mindset in order to make that happen with your horse. So yeah, it would depend. But I think that what's more important here is that this kind of, if you want different way or different kind of approach to how you and your horse are communicating, so more of less being reliant on a single aid, usually the reins, and becoming more holistic in your approach to how you and your horse are communicating, I think that will kind of blend through, it'll filter through into everything else. So I don't think that you have to be stuck in one point. In fact, I feel that if you were stuck at a single point, there's something not right, and you need to figure out what's wrong there. This is a constant evolving, like it's an evolution of you and your horse and the conversation and the communication together, and I think that that's really important. Okay, and the last question I'm going to answer for today is, how will I know if it's working? That probably goes back to the very first question. Was it the first question? No, the second question. Difference between thinking forward and rushing. How will I know if it's working? Is your horse moving with you with a sense of purpose? Has the responsiveness increased? Is your horse more balanced, more rhythmical, more relaxed? Think about the basics, and how you'll know that your work is working is if the basics, in the truest form of the basics, okay? And I'm not going to go over them now. I've spoken with them all the way through this, okay? But that they are present and that they are able to be maintained through the work you're doing with your horse. I would say that is how you know it's working. Another way to do this, and this was actually something I done myself years ago, went right back to basics with a horse and spent a lot of time lunging, and I could see the difference on the lunge, because I think sometimes you're trying to feel the difference. That's very different. There's a lot of difference in there, but that's very different to when you can actually see it. Like you can pinpoint, you can be like, yeah, that looks different to that. Woohoo. Okay, there's a win. Yeah. So maybe sprinkle lots of lunging in there as well, which leads me to connection and the whole half halting on the lunge. We spent the whole month of October doing that, and it was kind of born from this place where, again, years and years ago, I actually had a horse that was rushing and was just very tense and just like a big kind of a big hollow horse, okay, if you can imagine that. The back was like a big smiley face, and the whole kind of bringing that back to the basics, working on the groundwork and then working on the lunge and actually kind of refining the half halt on the lunge first and then taking it, transferring it. And like I mentioned, I'm not going to go through it again, but what I mentioned at the start, that transfer, that transition across, we were able to do that then from the aids on the lunge, transition it to the saddle, and just changing the whole approach to how the conversation was, and in doing so the horse's approach to actually working with the rider. It was amazing. So if you're interested in doing that, like the whole A to B to C to D, you got to join us inside of Connection. And right now we have the Black Friday special. It's the best special you're going to get for Connection. You can find all the details over at stridesforsuccess.com/black. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Have a fantastic week. Keep well, and I'll chat to you soon. Be good. Bye.